While early voting is underway, 2 weeks from tomorrow, voters in the Commonwealth will choose their local delegate and their top state officers. We've reached out to all 6 of the candidates for statewide office, for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general for a one-on-one interview here at 7:30. We bring you each conversation as they happen, and we post them all to our website, WTVR.com. Tonight, I'm joined by former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic candidate for governor. Congresswoman, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us, what is this election about? What's at stake?
The stakes of this election are pretty tremendous. It's about whether we're going to have a governor who's focused on the issues that I have heard about in every corner of our Commonwealth. That is lowering costs for Virginia families, strengthening our public schools, keeping our communities safe, and really making sure that we are standing up for our communities and our economy and Virginians in the face of so many bad policies also coming out of Washington, or whether we won't.
So there's been a bit of a distraction, as you're well aware. Last week there was a debate among the Attorney General candidates. Were you satisfied with the Democratic candidate, Jay Jones's apology for the texts that he had sent that were seemingly threatening the life of the then House Speaker?
Well, I want to begin by first, condemning clearly the text that he sent to a colleague, and I condemned them as soon as I learned of them, and called on Jay Jones to publicly explain himself. And I think that he's been quite clear in his apologies and in his taking ownership of that poor choice. Importantly, at this point, we've got hundreds of thousands of Virginians who have voted. Certainly, I think that debate was an important one for being able to show the contrast and the difference between two different approaches, for voters to be able to make a clear decision as they vote early or on election day for who will best defend them or work for them as Attorney General.
And of course, the economy is a huge issue right now. CNBC, not that we hold all the stock in what a cable network might be saying, but Virginia's fallen to number 4 in the best state to do business category, and it's always sort of a badge of honor that Virginia be number 1. Given the federal job cuts, the sweeping cuts really impacting Northern Virginia in a big way, the ongoing cuts that may be happening now during the shutdown, and of course the shutdown, what can you do to kind of reverse that and maybe restore Virginia to its ranking?
Well, and clearly when CNBC put out those ratings, they said in part it was because of the DOGE cuts. And we have seen 7 months of rising unemployment in Virginia. We're on pace, according to UVA's Weldon Center, to have no job growth next year in 2026. So as governor, first and foremost, to make clear that attacks on the federal workforce is an attack on Virginia, Virginians, and our economy. Certainly over the past 10 months, we have not had a governor who has stood up for Virginia's economy or defended Virginia's federal employees. Importantly, helping those who have lost their job actually transition into the private sector, and making an aggressive effort to try and recruit new business investment, particularly at a time when there's so much uneasiness because of DOGE, because of the tariffs, and because of the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, bad policies coming out of Washington that have so much impact here at home. There
have been a number of big announcements by the Youngkin administration of major investments, Eli Lilly, AstraZeneca, so it's not as if nothing has been happening. But as far as affordability, you talk a lot about that. Housing affordability is a crisis across the country, but also energy bills going up as well. What could you as governor do to somehow hold back the rising cost of energy bills?
Well, a couple things. And the first plan that I put out was my affordability plan for housing, healthcare, and energy. Specific to energy, we have to have more generation here on the ground in Virginia. And we are really leading the way in many places, particularly with the large offshore wind installation that's going in. It will be the largest in the country. That'll begin generation in the new year.
So green generation is a big part of it.
But in addition, nuclear and advanced nuclear, and continuing to recognize that as people live in Virginia, as investments come to Virginia, and frankly, as the way that we live our lives change with the amount of energy we use, doubling down on generation here matters. Ensuring that data centers are paying their fair share has an impact and is important. There's currently an SCC case going through, so depending upon the outcome of that, there may or may not be additional actions for the General Assembly to take. But importantly, then as it relates to housing, giving localities more flexibility for them to build more housing or
local zoning, of course, being a big obstacle.
Exactly. And then at the state level, there are plenty of hurdles or red tape that the state does put in place that can just slow down the process of building up new supplies, and ensuring that at the state level, I will ensure that we are doing a full review of every approval related to additional housing or the building of housing. And if it's slowing down the process, make it work faster or get rid of it.
All right. Candidate for governor, Democrat Abigail Spanberger, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned, I'll put all of these interviews at WTVR.com. We are still waiting to hear from Ms. Spanberger's opponent in the race, Winsome Earl-Sears, the Republican candidate, currently lieutenant governor. When we hear from her, we will post that interview at WTVR.com as well.